All right, for this recording, Jeremiah is going to be joining us in a moment, but starting off with just showing how I wind some of my electrodes and coils, and it's the exact same method when winding Keshi coils, Magrav coils, and very similar as well to winding the bagel coil, as Bob Greenier calls the triple coil within a coil that follows the symmetry geometry of the moon, earth, and sun as we move through the galaxy. All right, and that you want a consistency with as symmetric as possible coil connection and covering when doing the windings, and also you want to be winding in a counter clockwise method and fashion. That is a key crucial part to this technology and understanding it. You're going in the reverse direction of the right hand rule of electricity, right? So that is a major part of the understanding and electrical engineering and reverse engineering of our current electrical grid, connecting it to plasma. And yeah, I'm gonna pause it here. Well, I guess we'll finish the electrode. And so I'm using I'm wrapping titanium wire currently around a tungsten electrode that I will be connecting into one of my electrolysis reactors. We will be covering lots of the plasma Magrav technology in this recording once Jeremiah is able to join in with us. And we'll see you back. At the finished electrode here, you can see the piece of tungsten and the titanium wire around it. And there's Jeremiah, but we're pausing. We lost Jeremiah, but sure he will be right back. In the meantime, so maybe it's not titanium. I'm not sure. It could be an alloy. I'm gonna have to look into what metal that is. I think it is, but I'm not sure. But anywho, now copper around the tungsten and mysterious, possibly titanium, possibly not. Could be super alloy. We'll hear Jeremiah's testimony. Oh, there he is. He's back. So, Jeremiah.
Oh, yeah. Sorry about that. I had to go look up titanium properties on my phone to see if the thing that I was told was titanium was actually titanium. And after looking it up, it was not titanium that I was screwing with. So I looked up what you have. I tried to find a similar product by typing in plastic insulated titanium wire, and didn't find anything that looked quite exactly like what you have, but the color is right on.
So
it does say it's a lightweight metal.
This is what it came from, and it's insulated tube, and that's the wires within, if it will focus on it.
Yeah, are those individual strands?
Yeah, they're individual strands that are put together as a circle, but only the center one is a full circle. The other are all geometries of, I guess, corresponding circles around it.
So they're kind of like squeezed into place and they all conform to fill it 100%?
You got it.
Gotcha. 100% packing efficiency for maximum strength. What was it for? Like, what did they use it for?
It came from the main power electrical wiring supply into these like mega mansion estate houses that we were cleaning up the yard, the construction sites, and getting rid of the scrap. So I was able to keep the scrap wire from. But it was the main box panels that were coming from the ground. So I think it was like electrical, but it could be something else. I have no idea. But yeah, I got
either case, never seen anything like that, but that is pretty dang cool.
Right? Neither had I. And I was like, okay, extra scrap metal, Alchemist, yoink.
Yeah, well, if you're ever going to build a spaceship, I mean, that sounds like a pretty good resource.
Right, so I'm pretty sure it is titanium, because one of my buddies that I was working with that has done a decent amount of construction, he's like, oh, you got some titanium wire? I was like, yeah, I think so.
Yeah, the color that you showed me there earlier on camera and the color that I looked up online for what titanium wire looks like are pretty much identical. The stuff that I had was darker than that. I think what I was working with may have been a tungsten titanium alloy. Ooh. What I can tell you is this block of metal was extremely heavy. It was not lightweight like titanium. And I had never looked at, the properties of titanium because I didn't have a large chunk of it. So I just assumed what I was told then was right. And this was a long time ago. So I've been wrong about something I never talked about for like years.
Well, you were misled about it, then just never seen, because I guess titanium is rare, but it's becoming used more and more. And now that I think about it, it's like, no, titanium absolutely is light. That's why they're using it in aircraft, because of its strength and its light weight, right? So
it's got to be better than aluminum.
Oh,
that stuff is like everything destroys aluminum.
But
moisture destroys aluminum, mercury destroys aluminum, gallium destroys aluminum. Yeah, it's actually more of a list, I think, of things that don't destroy aluminum.
Right? Literally everything takes aluminum. Aluminum even will destroy aluminum left in the air or with the charge. But it's the same with zinc, and I think it might actually be similar with titanium. They all have very similar, like, light but strong electrical charge properties when broken down into the monoatomic form. So we'll actually pause here and I'll pull up the Walter Russell.
I was just about to ask you actually about the Walter Russell diagram. I was like, exactly. I bet you his diagrams are capable of explaining why aluminum happens to be such a fickle metal.
Right.
And why it's never found as a solid bulk deposit in the earth, but we find it as this just micronized powder or completely dissolved, and we have to use electroplating processes to bring it back out. That was a big discovery in how we found about making aluminum in the first place. It's like, oh, it turns out that you can actually put this impossible metal back together if you use electricity. That's awesome.
Exactly.
Unless I'm wrong about that part too.
That's the key to most of the, what they're calling rare earth elements as well, is that they're found in similar states and processes of not pure but chemical powders that with electricity you can bring back, like you're saying, solidify it.
What I find kind of funny is sometimes you'll hear stories about like a flying saucer scooting over a river and sucking up river water and riverbed materials, but you think, wouldn't the oceans have so much more? Whatever the heck they're looking for, but apparently not.
No, I've heard a lot of stories of the same out of the ocean too.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, absolutely.
I wonder if it's because they're looking for concentrations of certain things that end up showing up in freshwater rivers.
Could well be, absolutely.
Gold for one. I mean,
Yeah.
or maybe they're after that black diamond. Who knows?
Yes. Oh my God, yes. And I've actually got footage. Shout out Craig Headley man out of Headley, BC, who took the footage and of the he got. They said it was for about a week straight that these plasma orb UFOs were coming to the mountain next to the famous Headley gold mine, one mountain over. And literally these videos, you can see like they're zapping with like a laser into the mountain. It's absolutely mind-boggling and insane. And that's actually where I went out and visited and where I had my Sasquatch experience.
Yeah, very nice.
Yeah, I'll try to pull up that video as
Related.
well. So, right? We'll just pause here.
Super big fan of, but GPT is, it's capable. So, okay, sorry. Now that we're recording again, let me just jump in and inform folks of what we're talking about. So we're kind of going through some of the weird transmutation effects that we've seen from the direct aluminum to iron crenellated microsphere conversion using 400 watts of sound. And that one is got a whole list of various things that we need to do in order to isolate the microspheres out as fast as possible, because the dang thing produces aluminum hydroxide much faster than it produces crenellated microspheres. And aluminum hydroxide will eat the rest of the aluminum that's inside of there if you let it sit and don't neutralize it. And eventually, it'll destroy the microspheres. So,
right, decaying and eroding and destroying the exact evidence that we are harvesting and producing and needing to show at the TeslaTech conference with demonstration. And that Jeremiah was stating that he has to dilute the hydrogen oxides
so we start out with distilled water and aluminum, and that's it. Distilled water, aluminum, and sound waves. But the problem is that the process is so catalytic. There's so much energy behind the sound waves that it converts the aluminum into aluminum hydroxide. Now, if people that have worked on water heaters will probably be familiar with this idea that they're supposed to have some kind of an anode, something to neutralize out. That's sort of the sacrificial thing you'll have to replace every so often. But aluminum is a particularly problematic metal. If we find it in nature, it's always found as some kind of powder. It's never in like solid deposits because it just doesn't like to hold together with itself. But the problem is just raw bare aluminum sitting in plain water will produce aluminum hydroxide, aluminum salts. It's going to break down into the water, which sucks. So this process strips off the oxides right off the surface at a very fast rate. And besides the fact that it shoots out a dark gray jet of crenellated microspheres, it also shoots out this very caustic other material as it dissolves the aluminum into the water. So isolating those out is going to be a bit more of a trick because they are tiny, itty bitty little microspheres, and trying to filter them, I have a feeling that they're probably going to get stuck in the pores of filter paper, and the aluminum hydroxide might eat through the filter paper, which could be another issue. So maybe a ceramic filter of some kind. I suppose I haven't really looked into that, but that's something that we have to solve before TeslaTech. But here's the other thing that I wanted to bring up, and this goes back to an old experiment I showed on this channel quite a while ago. And this is what I was playing around with, that whole idea of hydrogen to helium fusion using a underwater arc reaction with a thoriated tungsten rod.
When it gets to the white plasma arc, and that the arc was producing hydrogen when it was like in the orange yellow state, and then when it got to the white, you were getting the helium.
That's as far as what I've theorized. Now, I don't have any way at this point to absolutely prove that it's helium, other than the spectrum looks like helium when I look at it on a spectrometer. But that's just the light that, there's a light spectrum, and it is being slightly colored by the fact that there's salt in that material. So I don't have an accurate enough spectrometer to guarantee it's exactly on the helium line, although that is not a difficult thing to do. I just simply don't have that equipment. But
exactly another reason why we're going over it, and why we want to be able to try to demonstrate both at TeslaTech this year and get samples, and how we capture the samples in the purest form for then the likes of Bob Grenier and other labs to take back and test, who actually have the equipment to do so. And that we're hopefully going to be able to do the hydrogen to helium as well as the aluminum to iron, but at the very least we'll do the aluminum to iron there, and maybe just the presentation on what we've done in the past.
Yeah, and if we can get a mobile spectrometer by then, or I can set up a data logging computer, because right now I am without computer, which sucks, but in the process of it, I'm going through some of the old hardware I have, and I might be able to set up one of these other older computers as a data logger. So what was more interesting is whether or not we had actually achieved hydrogen fusion and turned it into helium is not even as important to what I was looking for, which was, does the system operate over 100% efficient in terms of heating the water? And it seems that as it produces its own gas through electrolysis, but it's happening under plasma arc at extremely high temperatures, that it's also burning that hydrogen that it's producing, and that's adding to the total thermal energy of the water. And so you end up being able to heat up a 100 milliliters of water in about the amount of time that it should have taken you, roughly about 130% is the total conversion efficiency if you run the numbers in terms of how long it takes to heat up exactly 100 milliliters of water from room temp to boiling, starting at 78 degrees. And so that's what we were consistently seeing, is numbers above 130% is what it looked like. And I think a lot of that is possibly explainable, because here's why. Wayne was running these calculations a couple of days ago. Wayne with Fail Forward Research does some really interesting experiments on this kind of stuff and has worked with hydrogen. And one of the curious things that he found out was there is a direct correlation in terms of HHO conversion efficiency for electrolysis and temperature. And the efficiency goes way up as you increase in temperature.
Yes, sir. And it spikes exponentially when you get to the boiling point of water. And the reason for this is because of the valence shell breakdown and activation between the phase shifts of matter, going one liquid to gas, the other with the plasma arc, and the specific atomic hydrogen atoms that are produced through electrolysis, and how it all works.
And what we are looking at, the chart says something slightly different. So what it predicts is that basically as you go up to and approach 1,000 degrees Celsius, then we're talking really hot, right? So it's actually not that insane of an idea if you think about it, because steam generators, like the kind that run most of the country, these giant steam burning generators, claim efficiency is sometimes upwards of 98%. And the question would be, how in the world can they be burning coal or some other fuel like that and get that kind of insane efficiency? You know, is it all a ruse, or is it actually true? And there is no way to do it at room pressures. But if you put that, that water that's being heated under extreme pressure,
like water, right? It boils at 100 degrees Celsius, something like that. It's into a gas. But yeah, if you keep it pressurized as a liquid, then you're able to contain it and potentially turn it into actual ionized plasma H2. Wow, that's
right. So here's where it kind of clicked for me, and I don't think I would have ever realized the massive potential in increasing temperature. So what's really, really hot that we can all easily access and is ubiquitous throughout pretty much the entire cosmos? Plasma. Plasma does not have to be hot, but plasma can be hot, and it can be in the hundreds of thousands of degrees hot. So plasma is one of those wonderful things where heat isn't measured in terms of temperature so much as it is measured in form of energy, because plasma can carry a great many different types of energies and contain or easily convert those, electromagnetic fields into thermodynamic motion.
That's what I'm talking about, though, in this phase shift fusion that I've discovered through electrochemistry and through the water electrolysis reaction. When you combine the plasma arc and it's that the plasma is the EVO action, right? As
Right.
Bogdinger and Ken Shoulders, I believe.
Right. So when we're talking about hydrogen to helium fusion,
Right.
if
When
you
you're at
just
the
think about the
full,
basic idea that it's happening in the water, that's not going to ever make any sense, because you're not going to be able to slam
it's
liquid water into
happening,
liquid water fast enough. But
right?
it's not liquid water. It's literally been stripped of all of its electrons. It's in a plasma state, and it has a crap load of energy. It is thousands and thousands of degrees, which is why it becomes not such an absurd idea to consider that, say, a 20,000 degree plasma or above that's happening with a rapid cavitation event might actually be capable of, not only is it going to strip all the electrons off of the hydrogen nuclei, but it could easily send them slamming together fast enough to start to form helium. So
Yeah,
it's not such a crazy concept as all I'm proposing. It seems to make a lot more sense than one might consider. But it shouldn't be too hard to prove. So a spectrometer test would be a good way to do it. And then the other thing is we want to data log and show that the temperature gain of the system is significantly faster than should be possible with that amount of energy input, because we can measure the equivalent in watts per calories and determine the amount of time that it should take to heat X amount of water. And if it heats to that same temperature significantly faster than it should heat at 100% efficient, I would say those are pretty damning numbers. And I'm not gonna claim that it's, that it's producing some kind of free power, because I'm sure that's not the case. What I am gonna say is there's probably some very explainable source for where the power is coming from, like wherever this extra heat is coming from, whatever process it happens to be showing up.
Well, it's going to be
It
a type
is.
of hydrogen plasma fusion, right? And that's
Well,
just
that's
what
what we
we're figuring
theorize,
out.
right? But even if I
Exactly.
don't theorize at all, if I have no theory whatsoever, and I can just simply say I have no idea why this works so well, I can just tell you these are the input
I,
numbers and these are the
but
output
I'm
numbers,
saying
and make your own
I
conclusion.
do now. I
Right?
do. I've got the theory behind it, and it's what I'm calling phase shift fusion. It has to do with the states of elemental matter, whether they're in a gas, solid, liquid, or plasma state, and their interactions in and out of water, and what state they enter in, like whether it's a solid going into a liquid, then going into a gas. And when you combine the hot plasma arc aspect, that's when you're able to get a large amount on the boundary between the water with the dissolved elements in there, the production of the atomic hydrogen going in from the broken reactions of the electrolysis, electrochemical reaction, and the sacrificial anode metals that you're able to do atomic nuclei atom shifting, as well as just the state phases, right? So the different.
Right. Oh, I do want to mention one more thing too, and sorry to cut you off again, but this one I have to mention Richard Muller and his star device. So some people are going to be familiar with that, some people aren't. I tried to replicate it. It was improperly built, to say the least, the way that I made it, and that's because I had no idea how absolutely ludicrous the requirements were to keep that thing operating. It is very good at what it does, and it generates extraordinary pressure. So as we talked about, the temperature of electrolysis in any kind of electrolyte water, or just even plain water, the temperature is directly correlated to the efficiency. And the curve assumes that you can only go to 3,000 degrees because that's where metals will start to melt. What the curve does not assume is that inside of an active plasma arc, you can get the temperatures tremendously higher than that by orders of magnitudes. So what Richard Muller came up with is a really great idea, and he sent out emails and he's tried to get a bunch of people to understand this concept, but people don't quite listen. And I understand it's not exactly the easiest thing to wrap one's head around, but he thought about this concept of, why don't you try to build a special vessel that can contain a ginormous amount of pressure so that when you create your underwater pulsed cavitation arc, your hydrolysis arc, that the pressure has no place to go. So basically the cavitation event is going to collapse super, super hardcore because all that pressure is going to rebound back in, and therefore it's going to increase the cavitation velocity and actually reach fusion temperatures and give you the extra electron output. So I tested the idea, and what ended up happening is the thing was squeezing the electrodes out the sides. So that wasn't working too well. I replaced the electrode holders, tightened them up, got something that I had to literally use a vise to press in with several hundred pounds of force just to squeeze these electrodes into the retaining posts. And then the electrodes stopped moving. So instead, water was somehow sneaking past the seal and expanding those seals and still squeezing past it. And those seals were good to 10,000 psi. So it did not care. It was going to find a way out. It's not like this thing builds up a huge amount of pressure either and stays there. It's just that every single time it pulses, the internal pressure probably reaches about 10,000 to 15,000 psi. And it's such a short, fast event that in that brief amount of time, it lets out just enough water to take care of the pressure differential, but it would have to be hermetically sealed for this thing to realistically work. There's just no two ways around it. You have to have something that can take the extreme, extraordinary pressure, and that becomes obviously, an engineering challenge that could be quite dangerous because you don't want something going bang on you at extreme pressures. Good thing is it's not necessarily hot. This whole reactor does not get hot when I've been running it. It stays pretty room temperature, and negative voltage does show up on the outside, just like Muller predicted, that you get this electron emission. And that showed up by field probe. I didn't even have to connect something directly to the outside. I just put a probe close by it, and you can see the spike shoot straight up on the scope as soon as this thing fires per event. There's a huge amount of released electrons.
Jeremiah, I wonder if you put parallel identical electrodes on the outside of it, essentially like a Leyden jar works, if you could then harvest off of those electrodes on the outside, right? Like if you had a parallel anode and cathode going in, and then on the outside of the reactor, if you'd be able to get that sympathetic resonance like in the Tesla coils ringing.
Maybe. I mean, the biggest difficulty is still something I haven't solved, and it's the reason why I built that thing initially, tested it, seen that it was doing the effect that he claimed, and I wasn't able to go any farther with it because I literally don't know how to build an enclosure that can take 20,000 plus psi or more. And I don't know how large that number actually needs to be, but the engineering difficulty becomes greater and greater as you try to solve the problem. And I don't want to build something that is completely and absolutely sealed. Like I could weld together a case and just have some tiny little injection port where I put water into it and have all, everything inside there and have like a ceramic pass-through panel. But it seems like anything that I, have inside there to try to connect the electrical power from the outside to the inside is going to have some kind of a gasket, and that gasket is going to leak. So I have not figured out how to get the power into that thing and have it completely sealed. If people have, they've got ideas, feel free to leave them in the comments. But I would sure like to know how to solve that one, because I think Muller has a really cool idea here, and it would be neat if somebody else other than me played with it.
I gotcha. I'm gonna take that one to heart, I think, and work on that because it does tie into exactly what I'm doing. And so, yeah, we were looking at the Walter Russell chart in regards to the aluminum's place on the fifth octave in positive charge versus iron that is on the exact opposite side of the next octave up in the negative location, and how that would make sense in a K or addition process here, obviously combining the atom into iron.
Yeah, so what you were pointing out earlier about the aluminum and the iron being on the opposite sides of that octave there are super interesting ideas. And that just makes us assess, what other elements will be direct translations like that. As we discussed, magnesium to manganese is a possibility. It might be something very simple like that.
Yes, right. Sorry, I changed screens there, but just to show, right, because aluminum here and iron there, so manganese here, magnesium here, manganese here. This correlation that we're thinking with that proposal. And then another aspect of that chart is this chart that I got to give credit to Nancy Hutchinson with wife John Hutchinson. And when we were working with them with how you get the different charge differentials between your electrodes, your anode cathode, when making batteries, specifically their crystal battery was what they're using it for, but just as relevant here. And that next up is to look at the
yeah, she did provide you a pretty good chart there. That's a decent way to check that out.
Right.
Very straightforward, right?
Galvanic corrosion risk, very, very accurate, and a point of major relevance, and that I've experimented with pretty much all of these elements as anodes and cathodes and can verify these aspects. But silver doesn't corrode like titanium and gold and copper, though. It actually lasts a lot longer, which is interesting. They have it there.
But I do like that if you go with a magnesium anode and a manganese cathode, that you're basically in the safe zone there. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. And what was the other one? Oh, darn. Oh, I do have it. Okay, here we go. Sorry, one moment. This was the other chart that she shared with us. It should be coming up. And the metal potentials with their charge. Very important and relevant to this work and engineering, batteries, and, well, electric systems and electrochemical systems.
That chart does leave quite a few things to be desired, though.
Yeah, it's just for the aspect of, it's like you take gold, it's the high positive, and then you put it against like calcium or barium at the higher negative, and that's going to give you your highest charge differential sort of deal. Right, so aluminum, zinc, more on the negatives. Bismuth, copper, tellurium, silver, mercury, platinum, palladium, gold, the higher positive charges. Aluminum, one of the higher negative, close to. Lithium, right? That's why it's lithium ion. It's the highest up there. Look at that. So potassium, strontium, barium could make some good batteries out of.
Indeed.
Calcium as well. And of course, sodium, aka that salt. It's them salt batteries. All right. Well, that sucks. I thought I'd been recording for the last 45 minutes, but it was paused. So missed a lot with Jeremiah, and sadly he had to take off. But just to wrap this, I guess what will be a much shorter episode now, we were talking about the Walter Russell aspects of his octave spiral-based periodic table and the reactions between where aluminum is and iron is on the octaves, one octave off between the fifth and the sixth, in the same position, and thus making sense in a geometric, harmonic, resonant manner why we're seeing the reaction of being able to transmutate the aluminum into the iron sphericals so easily, why Bob Greenier's also getting the results with a much simpler aluminum to iron spherical transmutation process, and what's explaining the results of it, and that it adds up perfectly in Walter Russell's scaling system. And one more piece of evidence in understanding what phase shift fusion is and how it all works. Here we got deuterium and tritium. He called it ethlogen and bebegen. Bebegen would be deuterium, I guess, and ethlogen would be tritium. Or is it, I guess, maybe the other way around? I was thinking deuterium being 2 and bebegen. The beta being a second, right? So 2 and 2. Not sure, but that is what he had called them, and he predicted these two, what are called hydrogen isotopes, but in fact are just smaller below the smallest atom in our physical dimension. Gamma-non, where gamma radiation, alpha radiation, beta radiation, is that what he's seeing as particles in this same series? So we see it as radiation and now as subparticles, and Walter Russell predicting them before their time and then filling in the official names as science discovered them over 100 years ago. And yeah, Walter Russell was right, and we are now proving him right. Lastly, and it really, really sucks that this part of the recording with Jeremiah wasn't saved, but we were going over TeslaTech and who all is presenting at TeslaTech this year, including Dr. Weiping Yu of NASA, rooted in the mischaracterization of the electron as a negatively charged elementary particle. I didn't even read that part. Wow, I am going to have one epic conversation with this man, as well as with this man, Terrence Howard, and that I'm going to be doing a letter or email to Steve Ellswick right now to try to put together an interview with these amazing people before we even get to TeslaTech. All right, so Marco Rodin. Maybe he will be there. I'm not sure. At least you can see him on HowTube on previous TeslaTech years. Okay, sorry, didn't mean to go all the way to the back. All the amazing different products that will be displayed at TeslaTech this year. Different devices being demonstrated live. and by a lot of very, very genius inventors like Moray King and Dr. Jared Polak, PhD. Books for sale that they've written, highly recommend reading. All right, Thomas B. Finley, there we go. Okay, back to it. Of course, the main man that we need to see there, Bob Grenier, so that we can demonstrate the aluminum to iron transmutation, get him the samples, and co-publish in a scientific journal with this amazing human being. And can't wait to see his presentation. Also, can't wait to see this amazing individual and character's presentation. Always entertaining and educational. Personal inspiration. Moray B. King. Amazing, amazing guy. Learned so much. And Dr. Ludwig Thorsten Ludwig, sorry, got that little dyslexia moment. But this guy, I wasn't even aware he's going to be there. I just found out. So freaking excited. Beyond genius. Everyone, every single one of these individuals. Beyond geniuses. Paul Finman, PhD. We got Lynn Winfman, Wainfan, PhD, Lynn Wainfan. Jeffrey Hayes, Tesla's Impact. We have Paul Harris with Therapy and Quantify, which I believe are a part of Dan Winter's work and network. Don Paris, PhD, HC. Scalar EM, Steve Moore, Scalar Energetic Frequency Testing. We have Jared Polak, PhD, absolutely next level. Can't wait to talk to this individual. Randy Hatton, Water as Programmable Liquid Crystal, very relevant to my work. Robert Herlick, PhD, another amazing individual inventor I need to be there for, with water and ion cyclotron resonance experiments. Exactly what I'm trying to get into and evolve my own technology with. We have Larry Davenport, Life and Legacy of T.T. Brown, father of electrogravitics. We have Lucian M. Iones, PhD, Magnetic Universe. We have Russell Anderson, the Searle Generator Replicator. We got Mike Gamble, Tesla's Resonant Motor Design. Phil Wilson, Infrared Revolution. George Wiseman, another amazing inventor, Brown's gas metaverse, so another electrolysis technology. Joe Blatton. And oh my goodness, who's this extraordinary inventor, strapping young man? Oh, that's me. Look at that. Bernard Conkin, rediscovering lost ancient sciences. Chemistry is rooted in the ancient research of alchemists, men who attempted to purify, mature, and perfect certain materials. Well, post the link in the description so you can read the rest of it. Don't want to have an unfair bias of just reading my bias. Alana Freeland, MA. And we have the drone kit construction with Paul Filman, PhD. It's going to be one amazing time. And you're going to want to buy now. You want to meet us down there. And Steve's hooking me up an affiliate link, which I will be posting in the description. for those that are able and interested in joining. And it's going to be one awesome time, August 6th to 10th, my friends. Hope to see you all there. And on that note, love you all, and we'll see you on the next one. Ta-ta.
You crazy mother. Yeah.
It's just BurnEye.
Hey, Bernie, just like last week, huh?
Weekend at Bernie's.